Hi, I'm Liz.
And I'm Katie. Welcome back to Max's Fearless Youth.
Today we're with Yvonne and Jordan. Yvonne is the CEO of Max's Kansas City Project, and Jordan is a singer, songwriter, musician.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So today we're going to be interviewing both of them about their own experiences and how their struggles with substances and the arts helped them get through that. So Yvonne,
Yeah.
how did you get started with Max's Kansas City Project?
Okay, well, let me tell you how I got started with Max's.
Yes.
Okay.
the
So I'm
restaurant
going to
and
preface
bar.
for everybody out there, all these teens globally, Max's Kansas City was a very famous restaurant bar club, not in Kansas, in New York City, that really was the epicenter for all of the arts. Anyone that you could think of from the late 60s through the 70s either showed their art there, or they performed there, or they made their connections there, or they met their wives and husbands there. They got into Broadway plays by hanging out there. Warhol hung out in that back room. That was his place where he found many of his superstars. So it was really a mecca for globally, for people, all of the arts all over the world. They would come to New York, and the first place they would go was Max's Kansas City. So when I graduated college, I was 21, and I went out to Haight-Ashbury for the Summer of Love. I had never been to San Francisco, so that was my first agenda. And then I had wanted to travel around Europe. I had waitressed in college, and I thought, well, I'll waitress for 6 months. I'll make a lot of money, and then I'll go traveling before I decide what I'm going to do with my life. And I came back to New York actually, I hitchhiked back with somebody from Haight-Ashbury, and I was trying to find, I didn't know where to go to get work. And I had a friend who lived there, who had been there for a long time. And he said, go to this place called Max's Kansas City. It's the hottest place in downtown New York, where the waitresses make a lot of money and they're treated like stars. And I said, oh, yay, but how am I going to get an interview? You know, everybody wants to be a waitress there. And it just, so destiny had it that it turned out that somebody that we went to high school with was a waitress there. And he said, just use her name. So I did, and that's how I got the interview. And the short of it is that I didn't know who Mickey was when he interviewed me. I was sitting outside and I looked up at this big marquee and it said steak, lobster, and chickpeas. I also had no idea what chickpeas were at the time. We never had those growing up. And I walked in, there was this huge, enormous place. It was really huge. And I was dressed to the nines because I really needed this job. And I went upstairs and waited for my turn. And I had seen this person walking down the street that looked like kind of like Ichabod Crane. And he had this suit jacket on and this big flowered tie, and his hair hung over his eye. And I kind of watched him. And when I went upstairs, that was the guy who was interviewing me. And I had no idea who he was. Didn't have a clue. I didn't know. I thought maybe he managed the place. But anyway, a lot of sparks were flying in that room. There was an instant connection. And we had a lot in common when we started talking. So he said, actually, I like you too much, so I'm not going to hire you. I said, no, I really need this job. So he said, okay, I'll let you trail for a few nights. You trailed. And so that was the beginning of my Max's experience. And I actually went home, who I was sharing a place with my sister. And I said, I met the man who's going to be the father of my children.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
and then I found out when I started waitressing there that he was the owner, and that he was married and he had children. He had 2 children. And I was thinking, what happened to my fantasy? You know, fantasy. And anyway, over time, it came to pass. it turned out that, it just was meant to be. It was destiny. We got together and we had children. And so sadly, we weren't together when he passed away, but he passed away. And he was a man who didn't drink, smoke, or take drugs, an incredibly generous human being. He was the first one ever to trade art for tabs with artists who became wildly famous. He gave them a credit card. He'd say, here's, so much in cash, and here's a credit card. And then they could wine and dine the art critics and the art dealers, even though they might not have had a lot of money. And it was a very creative time. But eventually he owned 10 different places, and he got caught up in that drug scene with a partner that he had in one of the restaurants. And very sadly, he died of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 50. And it had just a tremendous, I can't even tell you the ripple effect it has on the family.
In the spirit of a beautiful friend that I've lost, years ago, happy birthday, Michael White. Today is his birthday.
Oh.
Wow.
Super generous, incredible, beautiful artist, really about the youth. So I feel like he's here in spirit. But something that helped me transmute those losses that I've had was training people to use Narcan overdose kits. And I actually brought one here. I already kind of showed you.
Yeah.
So this, everybody out there, is a Narcan overdose kit. And pretty much like they're super easy to use. If somebody's overdosing, you just spray it into their nose and it blocks their opioid receptors. And it just looks like this little nasal spray. And it has the ability to save somebody's life. And so at any of my gigs or friends of mine who want to supply this at their shows, I'll give like a little demonstration. And then through Hudson Valley Community Services, they supply the Narcan, and anybody who wants one can take one for free.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I've got a page on Instagram called Artists Above Overdose. And it's like in a baby stage right now, but I hope to like be able to train other community leaders to be able to distribute it themselves. And that's my mission.
Well, it's so
It's
important.
really awesome.
The overdoses are really go on the rise in the
It's insane. It's literally a pandemic.
It is
it's
really a
considered.
pandemic. Yeah. So it's really so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, how did you get your start in music?
I guess like I've always had music in me, like I remember being like a baby and like those like Playmobil things, like when I was going to bed, like it was just like playing that like lullaby song. And I remember once it hit that octave part, like da 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 da, I started like crying because I thought it was like so beautiful. It just like moved through me, And I mean, I feel like that's everybody, like we all have music in us. And my parents were both into cool music, different genres. And my grandma was always like playing classical music, and then my grandfather bought me my first guitar, and it was like circumstantially around like stuff I was really going through at home. Like I grew up in a really abusive household, and my mom was also like, I wasn't living with her, and she was going through this massive drug addiction to pharmaceuticals, and it was really, really intense. And that's when I like realized that like playing my guitar, writing these songs, like what I was going through was being transmuted, into something that like, even if it's not something that seems so positive on the surface, it's like all compartmentalized outside of you. You can sort of see it all, and interpret it all, and it becomes like medicine. Like every time you play it, you can sort of approach that like horrible, really tough subject safely, and then, like I said before, when you start expressing yourself with other people, like playing out and stuff, you have other people resonating with that. And then they'll come up to you and say how much, like a certain song touched them. And you're like, whoa, like, okay, this is not only medicine for myself, but for everybody, and it just kind of, exponentializes from there. But if I don't play music, I feel like dying. So I feel like I have to.
I understand that
Yeah.
completely. I I joined band in high school. My sophomore year, because freshman year was COVID, we didn't have it.
Okay, yeah.
And I was dealing with a lot, similar to you. And
Oh, wow.
when I started band, I finally had like a community of musicians. I mean, our band is one of the largest in New York State.
Yeah, wow.
There was like 170 people.
Where's that, Kingston?
Kingston High School, yeah.
Toledo, yeah.
A lot of us. And so I got put on an instrument I never played before, mallet percussion.
What was it?
Mallet percussion, so like xylophone, marimba.
Whoa, amazing.
Yeah, closest thing to piano. I've been playing piano for 12 years. And so that was the closest thing. And so with that, I had a community, and some of my closest friends I got through playing music with them.
Totally.
So it's really a community. And honestly, the time when I realized my music really moves people was I also play accordion. I taught myself for fun.
That's so cool. That's a really cool instrument.
It's really fun, yeah. So I was in my room playing by myself. The holidays are always hard for me. I believe it was around the holidays. And I was learning.
Yeah, usually is for people with like a kind of crazy circumstances in the family. Yeah.
So I was in my room and I was learning a new song that I heard. It's like a sort of folk song. It's called the Hurdy-Gurdy Man. Hurdy-Gurdy is like a German folk instrument.
Sounds German.
Yeah. And my mom was familiar with the song, and she walked in and I'm like, hey, do you want to hear the song? And then I started playing it, and then like I looked up and then she was crying. Because of the song. I'm like, I didn't know my music could have that effect.
Feel like?
I thought, this is powerful. The music, you know? It can convey such emotion.
Yeah.
I always felt it, but I didn't know that like I can make other people feel it as well.
Yeah.
That's
incredible.
powerful.
What a beautiful experience too. It's cool how like you looked up, like did you look up after you were finished playing, or like
I was like
during?
sort of in the middle. Like I was gonna look at my instrument to like shift, and then I look up and I see my mom. I stop. I'm like, are you okay? She's like, it's just a sad song.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it really is like sound, like, it's the emotion. It's like the ephemeral, like beyond words. Like, I mean, we can put lyrics to it, but like it's like by its bare nature, it's just emotion.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And also like you were probably feeling that song as well. And like kind of your atmosphere was,
it's a very
her.
like spiritual thing. It resonates with you and then outwards to the people around you. I remember I formed a really strong connection with one of my friends when we shared an instrument. We were on marimba together, playing on the same instrument, and that was almost like we were sharing a mind.
Totally, so in sync. Yeah. It's crazy to like jam with people, right? And like intuitively everybody knows when something's going to change, and it's that like it's getting out of that left brain and into your heart and into your right mind, where it's just like you're feeling, you're and that feeling doesn't lie. You can't second guess it, or else you fall out of the pocket. And it's kind of like it can be like a microcosm for your life too, like just like being in rhythm and just like not thinking too hard and just feeling it and feeling out, where should I go? Who should I talk to? Do I really want to express myself this way or that way? But that's incredible.
Liz, tell us a little bit about you play an instrument and your experience. We'll round it out.
My experience, I know with you and the band, it was kind of really different. Because my experience was kind of more negative. I didn't really have that like great experience with the band. It was just kind of they kind of made me want to not play music anymore. Wow. And I think when I reached that point, I knew I had to get out of that environment because like my whole life I've been around music. My mom always used to tell me when I was like super young, the first like words I actually knew were lyrics to an Alicia Keys song. Like I would always sing Alicia Keys, and like music has always just been a part of my life. And the moment where I felt like I don't want to do this anymore, it was kind of just like a scary time. So I knew I had to leave. And people tell me like the band is awesome, and the band is really awesome. It was just like the period of time like mentally where I was, and just like because band is like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Very
Really
hard.
demanding.
Yeah.
All summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
All summer.
And they had me on, I was in the band and orchestra. So I was playing 2 instruments in the band, and I was playing my orchestral instrument. So it was just like a lot. And it just, like, my love of music was leaving.
It's like work. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
it was just
It
like,
is.
it was kind of like a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up leaving the band. But during that time, I was playing the bass in the back. So I kind of took that time for myself and started playing it alone, like just solo and not in a band form, because even if I did do it in band form, I don't think I would be able to keep up my end of the bargain if we were all in a band, because the band is a commitment, and I was not able to in that time period keep up my end.
It's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to get comfortable with even looking at music or even touching my instruments. And now I'm at a place where, yeah, I can. It was actually the first week of July. That was the first time my band and I performed together.
Wow.
After, it was like the first time we were all, like, knew I was ready, and then we were all ready. And yeah, it was like what you said, you could all just like feel when something was going to change. It was all just like in the mood, in the air. And it was like, it was very nice.